Exclusive. Ubisoft wants to change the Far Cry formula with Far Cry 7 and Maverick. In 2023, Insider Gaming had several reports on the Far Cry series throughout the year. Notably, the Far Cry series currently has 2 games in development, which were both originally under the same game and codenamed Talisker. I don't know what that is. Its next mainline title is now under the codename Blackbird, and an extraction-based shooter is under the codename Maverick. Both games are still in development at the time of writing, but their release dates have been pushed back internally from 2025 to 2026 due to complexities in development. This, honestly, I think is probably good. Hearing all of these games having cascading delays as a result of Star Wars Outlaws and their kind of wake-up call from that, I think that's good. You remember in the wake of AC Unity and that disaster, they delayed a lot of stuff internally, and as a result, Ubisoft actually had a bit of a comeback. Whether you like the new Assassin's Creed games or not is kind of a separate thing, but in terms of like revenues, in terms of sale numbers, they sold more copies of games in that period after AC Unity, in that like 5-year period after, mostly spearheaded by Rainbow and by AC Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla. So they found a lot of success after delaying, and then they seemingly kind of forgot that that was important to take their time and finish games. They had a couple oopsies, like Breakpoint, for example, in the mix, but in general, they seem to have learned their lesson for a little bit at least, and then they forgot it. But I think these delays are good. Give devs more time and things will improve and get better. That's kind of the key. Moving from Dunya to Snowdrop, and under development at Ubisoft Montreal, both games are set to move away from the Far Cry formula. Maverick, which takes place in the Alaskan wilderness, will see players fight one another, animals, and the harsh weather to survive. On the flip side, Blackbird will now see the player have to rescue his family, not played by Cillian Murphy, who have been kidnapped by a conspiracy cult who have been performing hallucinogenic experiments on animals and children. It's said that the player has 24 real-life hours, 72 hours in-game, to rescue their family, and the timer is reflected in-game by the player wearing a watch on his wrist. I know some people didn't like this idea. I kind of love it. I love the idea they're doing something different. Because if it was just another kind of generic first-person shooter, I wouldn't be that interested. But I like the real-time limitations in games. I love it in the Dead Rising series. I think that it's kind of a clever way of pushing people into like a sort of existential stress over what they're doing. And if they want to do more side stuff, if they want to do other things, that's fine. Either play the game again, or maybe you say screw it to your family, you don't save them, and you just keep messing around in the real world or in the game world, like in Dead Rising. You don't have to solve the main story quest. If you want to just do everything else on the side, that's cool. You'll just suffer this consequence over here. So I know some people really don't like that idea. That's totally cool. You don't have to, but I like this. I like the idea they're doing something different. And also, like, people have for years complained that Ubisoft doesn't try different things. They don't try more experimental game design. They don't try wacky ideas. They just do the generic, most milquetoast thing ever. And this is pretty far from milquetoast. I mean, this is a pretty significant game design choice that is going to affect everything else in the game. So I think it's an interesting idea. He continues, but it isn't just the gameplay loop of both games that's changing. It's understood that both games have had significant overhauls to their movement systems too, including the addition of tactical sprinting, sliding, vaulting, and more. Seemingly, this is due to both projects originating from the same game and sharing similar movement mechanics. With the similarities of both games bleeding into one another, other aspects, including the inventory system and looting, also appear to bleed from the extraction-based shooter into Blackbird 2, with the sources outlining that it doesn't affect the mainline entry. I'd argue, quote, "I'd argue it makes a lot of sense given your desperation to rescue your family," said one source when asked. Interesting. Okay. Internally, Ubisoft Montreal and its supporting studios on Blackbird are optimistic, but some concerns over Maverick and its future loom given recent events of the publisher. Ubisoft has been attempting to do a Far Cry multiplayer for the best part of a decade, and while an extraction shooter could make a lot of sense for the Far Cry universe, it was ultimately greenlit to chase trends, and the genre doesn't seem to have attracted the player numbers that the industry thought it would. It's true. I mean, we have a lot more extraction shooters also coming. I mean, even PlayStation has their big extraction shooter, Fair Game $, that's slated for next year as well. So I think a lot of companies thought that the extraction shooter would become the new battle royale. And like, while extraction shooters are popular and there are some big ones, it also like is not on that level of like trend wise. It's not the big new thing. So it's a thing, but it's not the big new thing, you know. They go on, Defiant's recent cancellation and subsequent layoffs felt like the beginning of a downward spiral, said some staff, with Eve's internal memo following the announcement of its cancellation not inspiring much confidence in those already unsure about their project's future. For now, though, Ubisoft is seemingly trying to break its own trend of chasing trends, and Far Cry 7, or whatever it's called, and Maverick seems to be a step in the right direction, albeit a considerable risk. Which I think, again, is good. They have to take risks. They have to try something fresh. And even though some people are going to complain about this 24 real life hour thing, I personally like that. It's different. It's a hard choice. It's like a significant change in the formula. And it's a bold one that some people will hate, but some people will love. And I think that that's good. Instead of trying to make everybody happy, just do something you think will make for a cool game and go for it. The idea that like you're trying to motivate the player to go and save their family and you give them actual time constraints, not just like an arbitrary thing, but like a real quantifiable push. That to me, I think is solid. I think that that's a good move and I will compliment them for that. As for the extraction shooter that they're trying to do, who knows how that turns out. I am far from an expert in extraction shooters, but I'm at the very least intrigued that they're trying to do something like that. It seems interesting, but whether that finds success or not, I think I'm much less confident in that. Personally, because I think Ubisoft doesn't really know, seemingly recently, how to launch a live service game and lead it to green pastures where it can thrive. So them doing another one, I wouldn't be that confident, but they're going to keep trying. There's also, you know, the rumors of a live service Assassin's Creed game coming, so I'm sure we're going to see an attempt at that. Live service, excuse me. Yeah, they're doing like a no, what they're doing is they're doing Shadows, which will be its own big thing that will last like 2-3 years. And then they're going to be doing like a multiplayer game, which is like probably PvP or something like that. And then they're going to do a co-op game where you're going to, I think the rumors are that you're going to play with your friends to like take down assassination targets, kind of like Unity, if you think about Unity. And then they're also going to be doing Hexe, which is going to be like a more linear, hardcore, dark, gritty narrative game. And that's going to be in like 2026 probably. And then after that, they're doing other, like they have a lot of stuff coming, and it's going to be a lot of little bitty things that will not appeal to everybody. But again, I think that that's a good idea. Instead of trying to have the one Assassin's Creed game that has everything, that has co-op, multiplayer, live service, like instead of trying to do one game that does everything, they're going to try to segment. So they have the one big open world Assassin's Creed game in the form of Shadows. And then they have the co-op game that's over here. And then they have the multiplayer game that's over here. And then they have this game that's over here. I think that's a better way of doing it, but you will hear people that will be like, oh, they forgot about everything. Shadows was so bad. They made a multiplayer game, just totally oblivious to the fact that these games take like 5 years to make. But that's a separate issue. He took my thing.